we did that in a car ride towards school. It was the worst dad moment ever. Basically, I shared with them, yes, according to the judge, I have to go to prison because my son asked.
Hello and welcome to the Dad Dialogue podcast, the show where we talk about the successes and the stresses of becoming a dad and being a dad. My name is Lawrence. Thanks so much for being with us today. Quick reminder before I introduce today's guest, you can go over to daddialogue.co.uk if you'd like to sign up to be a guest on a future episode. So joining me today is my friend Amged. Amged is from the Netherlands. He has 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. In our episode, we talk a lot of different topics. We talk about how Amged has been able to introduce a screen-free day into his family's routine, what that has looked like on a week-to-week basis, how it's grown, how his kids have reacted to it. We also talk about how important Amged believes in investing in relationships with other men in terms of helping other dads out that are maybe a bit further back on the journey, or learning from other dads that are further along in the journey, and just spending time with one another and being able to have that opportunity to grow and learn with one another. I'm mostly super appreciative to Amged for opening up and being vulnerable with the show, talking about the story of how he went to prison and the impact that had on his children, and the various systems in place, the various things that they did as a family to ensure that it wasn't such a really, really, really big problem for him and his children, and how they're still able to unite through it and what it just looked like. It's a super fascinating story, and he also talks about how his faith played a part in that story as well. So really, really fascinating story. I hope you stick around to listen to all of it all the way through. With all that being said, let's get into the conversation. Amged, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on the Dad Dialogue podcast today. Can you just start off by telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here. I am Amged. I live in the Netherlands together with my wife and 3 lovely kids. Ailey, for 12. We have Jethro, who is 6. And we have Elena, who is 9, my young daughter. So together we're trying to manage the chaos while we also enjoy some of it.
Enjoy some of the chaos. I think that's a good way to look at it. I'm curious with the kind of the split that you have with your kids in terms of son, daughter, son. What do the kind of relationships look like kind of between them? Do you ever like fall into little kind of like, is there ever kind of like mum and daughter things and son and dad things, or between the 3 of them? Like, do the 2 older ones sometimes have a little connection to the 2 younger ones? Like, what is the kind of like relationship balance like in the family, and how do you maintain it?
Yeah, I think it changes over time as well as they are sort of going through stages in their lives and getting older. So I think especially in the younger ages, you see them draw more to the mum. Also, I think my daughter and my oldest son were quite connected before my youngest son was born.
Right.
But now, as he turns to become 12, actually we see a change of those dynamics, where my daughter is actually more connected with the youngest son. You have sort of these shifts. I mean, on a daily basis, it can just change. You see that actually they're grouping together versus one, or sometimes they're just playing together with the 3 of them. So it's very diverse actually. And we're still trying to find out what the dials are that shifts them into this dynamic. We haven't figured it out yet.
And any clues so far as to what those dials might be, or is it just random, different days, different?
I think my perception of it is, hey, they're little human beings, and sometimes they have their days, and sometimes they just don't, and you just have to bear with that. It's really just letting them evolve and storm together. Trying to find out what triggers them and what doesn't. That's also part of their development into coming into society and connecting with other people. So I'm to the point where I think there are some parts that you can sort of orchestrate, but most of it is just luck.
Just putting the guardrails into making sure that there's some amount of safety in there, and just sitting back and observing to some extent.
Exactly. And also allow some of the frictions to happen. Instead of cutting in and trying to solve it.
Yeah, well, I really like what you said about just remembering that they're little humans still kind of developing and growing. I think that can be something that's very easy to forget when you're like, maybe you've spent a lot of time with adults and then you're trying to apply adult reasoning to a child who has not been through the same sort of experience that we have. And just taking that step back to remember, like, oh yeah, there's a little kid that's only been on this, been on this earth for just a few years in comparison to me. So yeah, we have to have a lot of grace for ourselves at that time, I think, and for our kids.
Exactly. And I think also, even adults, we're still figuring out how to work together, and how you still get to the playground dynamics at work as well. So in a way, we haven't sort of fully learned it yet as well. So.
Exactly. So I remember you've been telling me about your screen-free Sundays recently, and I'm curious. Firstly, kind of what inspired that decision, how it's going, and then how the kids have reacted as well.
Yeah, I think what inspired it is my annoyance towards my son, who's on the screen too much, and realizing that annoyance is not so much towards him as it is actually a mirror towards me.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually from that started to also look in, from being rooted in my faith, to understand how do we deal with that concept based on the biblical principle of how we were supposed to live in general, and there's a key component in Christianity which is called the Sabbath. And it's based on taking rest and being at rest, and on that principle, really trying to understand and navigate. Well, how do I do that? How do I take rest in a world where rest is actually not a common commodity, and everything is pulling at you? And it requires intentionality, basically. That's the first and foremost reason. So we sat the children down. We became more vulnerable in our own behavior. We shared with them how much screen time we are actually taking, as opposed to just saying how much they are doing it.
Yeah.
And realizing that we all are learning, and that we wanna be in control in the fact that the screen is not dictating how much we should watch it, but that we can also be able to say no. And based on that, they didn't agree with having a screenless day. I started doing it the first month myself.
All right.
And then I pulled them in a little bit by little bit, as they saw that I was becoming serious. And now they're more serious than I. Which is again not so good, because they confront me of, hey, you're watching your screen. Oh no, oh yeah, you're right. So yeah, it's a great journey. It's also realizing that we should not see this as a doomsday moment, right? Where actually you want to watch the screen and you can't watch the screen, and so you're sort of legalistically restraining yourself, and actually becomes a very horrid day. But actually doing exactly the opposite. It's just reconnecting with them, with the family, and doing a lot of fun stuff together. Just really going all over, and just playing with them, going for ice creams, just enjoying really just being together, and having intentional time with them. At that point, then it always trumps the screen. It really does.
That's amazing. So so you've done it. So you did it for a month before putting them in. How long have you all done it as a family?
I think we're heading into 3 months now.
Okay.
With its challenges as well. So I became very sort of adamant on really putting the screen in the room, not taking it with me to church because we do it on a Sunday. So the screen, so basically my phone was not there. And I was convinced that this was the right approach, especially because I was otherwise tempted to grab it and to watch it for no reason. But also it came with its challenges, because when we would be separated from my wife doing groceries or something like that, and we didn't agree well on where we would meet. Literally last week, I was just driving around trying to find my wife and the kids, only realizing that she already went home and I was driving around for nothing. So yeah. It's not always rainbows and sunshine.
I always assume that like something like that must happen eventually, if you're not even kind of like defaulting back to like, you know, a physical like landline or something, or like a phone that you could, because that's what I mean. When I first was a kid and I would be like let out by myself, my mum would always make sure I had some change if I wanted to use the payphone. Like that was that was like my safety net, right? She taught me to use the payphone, so like had some change in my pocket. So therefore she's happy with me being out for however long, because she knows that I'll call her. And it's just so interesting, like now that I'm a father and going through the process of like leaving kids at school, I would have that like moment of like, oh, I can't go and charge my Apple Watch. I can't leave that aside. I can't have my phone not next to me, because what if his school tried to call me and I don't have my watch and I don't have my phone with me and I miss it? It's just like, what, like, how have I got to this stage where like that is my level of concern of like, I am allowing myself to be that contactable at like every hour of every day. It's just, you could become, I mean, and that's kind of, I guess, how some of these companies want you to act towards your devices, right? They want you to get locked in. And then obviously all the app developers and all the ads, they want you to be using it as much as possible. So like you said, trying to get away from being a slave to it, to then like reverse it around and see what can we do with that time. So I'm curious, has there been any specific kind of like activity or get together that kind of like stands out in your memory? Maybe not even like an amazing, like spectacular day out, but just maybe like a moment that lives in the memory of connection.
Yeah, I think just having dinner together, lunch together after church. I think that's really a cherished moment of just coming together, you know, preparing lunch together, you know, throwing food at each other sometimes and just having a ball, and then sitting together. We do screenless dinner anytime, every day, but I think just realizing that, you know, the week is so hectic, everything comes at you, and just realizing that you have the lunch together to look forward to after church, to just sit together. I think is really enjoyable. I usually want to also go out for a walk afterwards. And sometimes it happens, sometimes they don't want to, but, you know, we go just out for a walk, feeding goats, something like that. And, I really enjoy those times. Just, nothing specifically, as you said, nothing glamorous, but just being together, and then really seeing the kids, really seeing them, you know, how they, like their little tweaks, their little looks, their sort of their ways of growing without you noticing actually, and just realizing, wow, you know, these are little miracles.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's hard to do when you're in the hustle and bustle of things. It can be easily something that you overlook.
Yeah. I'm being reminded, actually, this is I did a episode of like where I did me just talking, called Dad Diary, where I looked into screen time and TV use and stuff. And I said in that, and something I tried to do for a while, was that in our living room, we have like one 3-seater sofa and like a one person kind of like soft, comfy chair, which is where I like spend which is where I do like my devotional time in the morning. I always sit on that chair by the window. But I made I set a rule for myself. It's like, if I'm sitting in that chair, I'm not going to look at my phone. And that's what I try to say to myself. It's like, so maybe the kids are playing very nicely by themselves in the living room, but if I'm going to sit in that chair, that means I'm going to watch and like kind of be engaged with them, or like read, so that I'm always like naturally responsive. That doesn't mean that like if I need to use my phone in the living room, I can still do it, like sit at the table or whatever. But I set myself that rule, and it felt like it went well for a while, and then I just must have forgotten about it because I definitely use my phone in that chair now. So it's just those little shifts, I think, that we can kind of, as long as we're honest with ourselves, to just try something and just try and be a little bit better. And like you said, that mirror to them, because I think we all know as dads that they are just the ultimate mirror, and they just show us back what we're doing rather than what we're saying.
Yeah, whether we like to or not.
Yes,
they will show it.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because I know we obviously, for the listeners, we work alongside each other kind of within our church setting of doing men's leadership, men's fellowship, or running events, and just kind of being there for men and offering up opportunities for them to connect. But I know that you're also involved in things with your kids, like with football and with youth and on like the worship team. And obviously you got a job and your wife and 3 kids. So I'm curious, because I know you do a lot of other things as well. Are there any things in your life that, or can you talk about things in your life that are not dad things? So like not actively dadding, as in not actively to kind of caring for your child. Do those things make you a better dad? So like when you go and kind of serve on the worship team or serve in the men's team, or you're going, I know you're doing like barbells and, was it Bibles and barbells and Bibles?
Yeah, Bibles and Barbells.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Bibles and Barbells.
So these things where you're not around your kids, do you think it makes you a better dad by kind of having these different things? And if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. I think without a question. I think one of the things that, growing up, I didn't have a father around that taught me how to be a good father. Even, becoming a man was something that was, something that I really wasn't like taught in or raised in that sense. It was more from the world that showed me what a man should be. So I had a very distorted view of manhood, a very distorted view of what it means to really be a father. And so I actually, in my quest of what does it mean to be a man that walks right with God and with the world and with also as a family, it just struck me that there are so many out there, men, fathers, in all areas of life that are also wrestling with that question and that are also trying to find sort of their way. So it took me on a journey of first looking at this myself, and I'm still learning, but also realizing it's not a solo journey. So wanting to see if we can get men together and to battle this together and to understand what it means, because I think we live in a very individualistic world where, we're supposed to have all the answers. And if we don't, we find it on AI or ChatGPT or whatever, but we become less dependent on each other. And I think the opposite is very true there. We learn from each other, by not just by information, but someone that has lived something through something. So I've learned a lot from other men on topics where, that I use for raising my children. And when we talk about ministry like worship, oh man, it's so beautiful to see when your kids are playing an instrument or singing or, copying you in doing that stuff. And it's something that you don't necessarily intend to put upon them, but they look at you and they just do what you do, even if they don't know why they are doing it. And I think that's where I think I just try to model what I want to do, because I believe it's the right thing, and because also based on my faith want to pursue. And I just hope that something of this rubs off to my children.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like going back to what we said about them being mirrors and reflecting us back, as we actually try and play into that, right? And kind of use that to our advantage.
Yeah.
If they are seeing us and present with us, then we try and model the best things that we can do.
Yeah.
As you mentioned the AI thing, I was reminded actually of I think last year must have been episode 7 or 8 on this podcast. I interviewed an old mentor of mine who's a grandfather. He's got like 3 or 4 like quite young grandkids, and one of the main things he was saying about parenting now versus when he was a parent, like to little kids, was that it seems very easy to build what he called the faux village, like a fake village of social media, of Google. And we didn't talk about AI at that point because it was, not as big, but like, and I guess that's kind of a similar thing of like, you feel comfortable and confident in your village, but your village is just, possibly influencers on social media or AI giving you all the answers.
Yeah.
But the real kind of commitment to one another is super, super important. And I guess this kind of links back into having some screen-free time of just spending time with real people in real life, actually just communicating with them and learning from them.
Yeah.
So how do you find, how do you kind of become intentional in that and make sure that the timing all works out? Because obviously you do a lot. I'm always talking to you about how you must just like not sleep at night when I see of how much you get done in each day. So how are you intentional with your time? Do you have any systems in place to kind of maximize your 24 hours in a day?
I don't have a system. I think it's one of the things that I'm very bad at. It's planning and systems. To be honest, I think rhythm is something that helped me a lot. And again, it's sometimes I hit it and sometimes I don't. It's basically realizing what is important for me, for my family, and for the people around me. And on a daily basis, ensuring that you start the day with a bit of reflection and absolutely with God to ask, hey, what are you touching upon for this day? What is it that you that you want me to see and to focus on, as opposed to me having all the sort of checklists fulfilled. Really trying to be intentional about the day itself, and that could mean that I might miss things that the world finds super important, or even sometimes it's choosing a specific person over spending time with the family because God has put that on my heart, for instance. And I have to trust, and I do trust that I am not the sole bearer of ensuring that all the time is spent with the kids, and that it all depends upon me. And I believe that when you fine tune sort of your way with God, it has a way of just things working themselves out while you trust Him in not trying to hold on to everything at the same time, but just ask and see what comes back. So it helped me at least to create some focus and intentionality. But the rhythm itself of just spending time, being still, listening, prayer, before the day starts, it really helped me to get rid of anxiety, get rid of, trying to get the checklist done. And again, I'm still learning. So it's also, I miss a lot of things, and I also have to ensure that I don't disappoint too many people at the same time. But also realizing that if that is the case, then there is grace. So we need to always find a balance in that respect.
And so what does it look like? So how, because you mentioned to me the other day that how over summer holidays, you're kind of like sleeping in maybe a little bit, and the kids are obviously at home. There's like less routine to your day. Do you find that impacts that kind of set aside morning time a little bit, or are you able to kind of like hold firm to
it?
No,
it did. Yeah? It did impact that.
How long each morning do you try and set aside?
It depends. Sometimes I'm spending an hour and a half. Sometimes it's 10 minutes. It really is very variable. I always, especially when, so during the summer times, I find that it's difficult because the rhythm has changed indeed. Kids are not going to school necessarily, staying up later, and especially during school period. I try to get to bed at 10 and then wake up at 4:30 or 5 to really have that sort of cutout time with God. And I'm trying to find a way in that during the summer season, because the summer season, the kids stay up later. I stay up later, and then it's become difficult to, you also need to be sure that you have enough sleep. So I usually try to still have my quiet time, but then it's going to be later. The advantage is the kids don't go to school, so you can take 7 a.m. for instance to still have your time. But I do realize that I miss it. If on a frequent basis, for instance, 3 days in a row, I have not been able to have that cutoff time, then it does something to me. My wife sees it as well, and it's just a realization. It's your anchor, and indeed, your wife is a good sort of reference of knowing that there's something off.
It's nice to hear that it's like sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half, because I think that's one of those things that people can kind of beat themselves up about, trying to have discipline over these sorts of things, of spending quality time, whether it be like, spending time with God, or even like just kind of exercise, or going for a walk, or healthy eating, like these sorts of like things that we know are good for us, things that we know we should be doing. And then we might tell ourselves, I'm going to do 30 minutes of this thing, I'm going to do 45 minutes of this thing, and then you don't do it at all, and then that's like really disappointing, and you kind of like beat yourself up, and then the hole kind of gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But just kind of setting yourself the target of like, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to try and get up, or I'm going to try and do this thing, and it might be 10 minutes, it might be 20 minutes, an hour. I think that is, I have a kind of similar experience with it. Like, yes, when we're all in routines and I'm getting up really early, it often might be an hour myself. But I found that my 2 young kids, they're always running out of bed before 7 o'clock in the morning. So like I'd need to be getting up before them if I want to have that time. Otherwise, it's just, sometimes they can sit quite quietly, but like, they see me open my Bible, and then they want to see their names, because we gave them Bible names. They know that every time they see my Bible, they go, just turn to this chapter. We want to see, and it's just so. Yeah, you want to carve out that time and be intentional about it, but never get to the point of like being disappointed that you didn't hit a certain number when something is better than nothing.
Absolutely, because then you miss the point, right?
I've yet to meet a dad, at least, who does this sort of thing in the evening instead of during the morning. Like, I'll often, like, when my head hits the pillow, like, I'll have, like, just think about Psalm 23 or say a quick prayer at the end of the day and then go to sleep. I've never met anyone that can be like, I'll do like an hour prayer before bedtime. It's like everyone is just like, no, too tired for that sort of stuff. we're not prolonging bedtime any beyond what we have to. So
maybe it's a dad somewhere on an island that has sort of this surf dude vibe. But no, I agree. It's usually in the morning also, where you just wake up to the presence of God, and just it helps. I think most men, especially, because I think your physical, emotional tank is then still full. And as a dad, you go through like work, you go through family, you go through all these things, and it requires all your attention, your creativity, your emotions. And I think at the end of the day, it's just indeed the only thing that can come out maybe at the most is a quick prayer, and just thank you, Lord, that you've carried this day, and then you go to bed. Yeah,
indeed. I'm curious. to kind of put you on the spot here.
Go for it.
Obviously, some of the listeners, won't be people of faith. They might have raised in faith-filled environments, but might not be following. We're not a specifically Christian Dad podcast. I'm curious. Yeah. So obviously, God, we talk about God being the perfect Father. Like, in the Holy Trinity, we have God the Father. Can you kind of describe in layman's terms, maybe to someone who's not a Christian, who hasn't grown up in church, something about your life that you can kind of relate to God the Father, and how God being that perfect Father can help you as a dad yourself, like practically what it actually kind of looks like?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think my experience with God being a good father, I think, has to come from the time that I actually was in prison. So there was a period where I was sentenced to prison for 6 months because of committing fraud. And as I said before, I had a very distorted view of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a dad, and so on. And I think that was leading me into this area of my life. I think in prison, we, of course, I didn't have any resources. And your world is quite small, especially when you're alone in your cell. And there were moments where I just was so missing my kids, my wife, in that regard. And the only thing I could do was just cry out to God. And I had such deep moments of comfort from God in those areas of my life, and where He also started revealing these things that are very deeply based in my heart, that were just still off in how I viewed the world. So my sort of experience with God being a good father is actually coming from Him sort of restoring me in the worst place that I had experienced, knowing that it can only come from Him. And He even brought me into a place where He showed me that I could still forgive my father for leaving me, and not just saying, okay, I forgive him, but really thinking about him with just this intense love. And so, yeah, in terms of my experience with Him being a good father, I think he just is so present in the moments where you need Him, and we cry out to Him with all honesty. He's there. And yeah, so that allowed me to really come out with a very different view, being also completely focused on different things that I was before, and still I'm being fathered by Him every day, where I'm just this kid sometimes just mumbling and grumbling about things of this world, or the people around me. And just receiving this patience of God, but then also when I'm done mumbling and grumbling, then just He speaks into my heart, and it's just sometimes people say, yeah, well, how do you know if it's God's voice or just your own voice? I can tell, because the things that I would say to myself would only benefit me, and it would not bring me into an area where I would reluctantly need to go. And usually it's that part where when God speaks, it's something that I really don't want to do, but I realize it's Him speaking. So yeah. So that's maybe a very vague explanation, but it's my experience with how I experience God as the Father.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. I think there's a couple of areas I want to go. We'll jump back a little bit, but I think what you're kind of saying, just practically, of going somewhere where you might not want to go, of that physical, like I've had it also myself, where there are just thought places that you you feel like kind of God's taken yourself to reflect on certain things that have happened and words that have been said and memories that you've physically, buried deep down.
Yeah.
When if there are weeds coming out of you, you don't just like snip the weeds back that you see. You need to get deep and pull it out. And, it's not always going to be pretty for the flower bed to pull this whole thing out. And those kind of physical moments of like, I've had it also where you just kind of feel it through your body of like this thought coming in, and just like you maybe don't want to think about it. Like, I'm going to talk a little bit about forgiving your father, but like forgiveness in general, of God trying to speak to you or to me or to anyone about forgiveness and forgiving someone else. We don't want to be reminded that we should be forgiving someone that hurt us. We might shut that box off and move on with our life 10, 15, 20 years and just, well, that box is done. I don't want to open it, but
exactly.
That's how we can know that there is that the Holy Spirit is guiding us to kind of help mend us and fix us. So what did that look like, forgiving your father? Like, was there a practical step that you took, or was it like just something that you kind of like allowed over yourself?
Yeah. So I think my father left when I was 3.
Wow.
And so basically, I didn't know my father. I didn't also actually care about my father. At some point, I just, was sort of emotionless.
Yeah.
It only comes up whenever there's like a dad and son reunion on a movie, then I would be crying my eyes out. But so there was still this deep emotion in that as well. But I think the first step that God really touched upon is my mother would come to visit me in prison, and I just asked her, what was my dad like? And she really took that seriously, and she wrote me like a 5-page letter about my dad and how they met, and so on. And I just read that letter, and it just at the end of reading it and just seeing so much similarities of my behavior and what she described in him as well. It sort of, I finished and went into prayer and just said, Lord, I truly, utterly forgive my father. And I don't just forgive him, but every time I think about him, I think about him with just a complete fullness of love for him. My dad is not around anymore, so I wasn't able to physically forgive him. But that really just, I cannot describe it, but it just broke open this area of love that was so limiting, apparently, that I didn't know of. And my love just for people around just increased so tremendously because of that. And I just realized then how much that held me back, actually, of loving the people around me, because I wasn't able to forgive my father. So it was that was a little bit the journey.
Thank you for sharing. I think that is something that obviously within, I think, the secular view of Christians, they probably know that we talk about forgiveness a lot, but not knowing the kind of the depths or the process of what it might look like. And it's not just a case of like, oh, I'm a Christian, yeah, I forgive you. Like it's, I follow Jesus, yet this person has caused me deep pain. And like you might go through year-long processes to kind of mend that pain, but like that pain can be restored, and we can just have this, like you said, this love just kind of opens up and is expanded out. So thanks. I think that's really impactful, because you don't have to be a Christian to forgive someone, whether they're here or not. But I think just practically what that can look like and having those kind of responses and stories, I think is super, super valuable for anyone that might be listening. And maybe someone comes to mind that they also need to forgive or ask forgiveness from. So I think that's really powerful. So just going back a little bit into the aspect of going to prison, at what age were your kids with that when you went in? So how long ago was it?
So it was in 2022. Yeah, 2022. Kids were about 4, 7 and 10. 4, 7, and 10. So
what do you think the impact was on them?
It was, I think we went into this with a whole process. So I think the whole process of knowing I would go to prison would be like 3 years, from finding out that I had committed fraud until actually me going to prison. So they were aware that I committed fraud in the 3 years, but they didn't know yet, of course, and we didn't know whether I would go to prison or not. In those 3 years, God was already sort of shifting my heart and working on me tremendously as well. And one of the things that I decided was I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest, bluntly honest. I'm going to be honest to my kids and everyone around me. I'm not going to hide anything anymore. So the first trial, I actually received sort of judgment from the judge during the trial that I would have to go to prison. That was before the second hearing. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to share this with my kids. We did that in a car ride towards school. It was the worst dad moment ever. Basically, I shared with them, yes, according to the judge, I have to go to prison, because my son asked, and my daughter was in the car as well, and the judge explained to them, God is in this, and so on, and after I'm back, we're going to celebrate together, and it's going to be fine. And they took that, and then my daughter went to school, and she apparently shouted in the playground, "My dad is going to prison, but we're going to have a party." So there were some questions that I had to answer from the teachers. So it wasn't the best way to break news, and realizing bluntly honesty as a dad is not always the right way in helping your kids through this situation. So the second time, actually, so we went into the sort of to the second hearing, or there was another sort of case. Then we received the final judgment, and that was still 6 months. And we wanted to approach that differently. So we together with my wife, we reached out to different foundations and helping with this specific topic. We reached out to the school. We tried to really just be very open and honest. Hey, how do we deal with this? How do we tell them right? How do we ensure, because the age difference is so big, how do we make sure that, it lands, but it doesn't impact them in such a way that, it causes damage as well. Praying into that a lot as well before we told them. And then we went out for a weekend away, and we were prepared in just telling the whole story, realizing that when we for instance, words like prison, we don't even have an understanding of what that really means or what that looks like, only from movies, and they don't as well, only from cartoons. So they would imagine like a dungeon and a ball and chain, for instance, and that's going there. So realizing those words and what that means and how to sort of navigate around that, instead of calling it prison, we call it, which is called in Dutch, goedmaakhuis, which is basically a house that where you can contemplate and do things better than you've did them before. It basically helped also with pictures, for instance, where we told them the stories with drawn pictures of this is what happened, this is where, and this is how it looks like in a prison, this is what you can do, and dad just gets food for 3 times a day. Those simple things that we assume we really had to explain to them. And when we broke the news there in the forest, we prayed together. And I have to say, it was the most painful, but also the most connected moment that we had as a family as well. Just receiving so much wisdom from my oldest son, and just, poetic words from my daughter, who, we were in a swimming pool just after that. And she said, like, Dad, I'm just going to cry, so much, like filling this whole swimming pool, with tears. That's how much I'm going to miss you, and those words you never forget. So, yeah, it's quite a journey.
I was going to say.
But yeah, it was impactful. But I believe that, the Bible speaks about what was meant for evil, God will use for good. And I see this also in my kids, that even though, this was not a happy moment, this was not a great situation to be in as a family, you see this profound richness of growth in the kids because of, just how God was really carrying us in this time as well. And just their experience would be so much different if we didn't have God in this, at the center of this. So that's a little bit how they experience it. And now I think we do try to check in with them to see, because even now we realize that this can have like such a big impact that even years after could still do something to someone. So we actually are connected with a foundation that's called Stichting Kind, which is Foundation Child, and it's actually caring for children for which parents are actually in prison, one of the parents. And we were at the conference, and there was this woman of, I think, 35, that experienced her dad going to prison when she was 12 or 11. And they didn't say that he was going to prison. They just said he was going on a trip, or he was just away. And it still damaged her to that day, like 35 years old. And she still felt that her dad was just not there for her and didn't love her. And that's why he left. So it can be quite impactful.
Wow. Yeah, no, I was going to ask about kind of what does it look like in the years following. So it's nice to hear that there are frequent check-ins, and the fact that like there are foundations that can help in these sort of situations, like people that, the experts, so to speak, that can help through it. I think it's nice to know that those sort of places exist. Yeah. Obviously, yet like you said, if you don't, you do just picture what you've seen in movies and TV shows. So it's good to know that there's a structure and a system there. So last question, we always do on the show. I'd like you to think back to Amged from about 12 or 13 years ago. So before becoming a dad for the very first time, welcoming your son into the world, what advice would you give to Amged of that age about, any advice at all, maybe about being a dad or not? So what would you say to Amged before he became a dad for the first time?
Wow. There's so much that I would say. But I think the one thing that I would say is enjoy it. Enjoy just this time as being a dad, because things they just do go quickly. Each phase, each moment with your child, it's such a delight, and we need to be reminded every day that it's a blessing. And just enjoy being with them.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amged, for joining us here on the Dad Dialogue podcast and sharing your stories with us.
Thank you for having me.
And there we have another Dad Dialogue conversation. Of course, a massive thank you goes out to Amged for coming on the show and sharing his stories with us. I think you can agree with me that was a really powerful episode, just hearing that story of how Amged went to prison and what that looked like in terms of the impact it had on his children, and I'm sure his wife as well. We have to remind ourselves of that in that situation also. And Amged also opened up about, forgiving his father and what that looked like, and hearing the practical steps he took in terms of how he communicated with his mother. The actual steps he took to kind of come to a place of true forgiveness was really, really powerful. And I hope that kind of resonated with you a little bit. I hope it kind of spoke to you a little bit. And maybe there is someone out there that maybe you need to forgive or ask forgiveness from. It's such a powerful topic, and it can be such a healing thing to us. Whether you have faith in your life or not, I truly believe that this is something that is super, super valuable and super, super important. So yeah, there was a lot in there from Amged. I'm really appreciative to him. If anything in this episode touched you deeply, please do reach out to me, connect. If you want to chat about something, it would be awesome to hear from you. If there's any comments on it, you can leave them in YouTube, or you can email me, daddialoguepodcast@gmail.com, or a contact form over on the website, daddialogue.co.uk. You can always reach me there as well. All that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Dad Dialogue Podcast. I hope to talk to you again soon. Goodbye.